What's up? Jack here with devslopes.com. And in this lesson, it's just a quick lesson. We're going to install mongodb. Now, what is mongodb? Well, it is a document store. It's in the class of a nosql database application. And you've probably heard of things like MySQL, MySQL, Postgre, SQL, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, things like that. Those are all SQL-based applications. And what that means is that they've got their own query language that they use, and they're also based on tables and rows and columns. Now, on the other hand, a NoSQL database or NoSQL database is based on documents. If you've ever seen JSON objects, it looks very similar to that. And that's one reason why it fits so well with JavaScript and Node. So without further ado, let's go ahead and install it, and then we'll take a look at some documents real quick. So I'm going to pull up my web browser. And if you go to mongodb.com, you'll get the main web page. Now, it is open source, but there are some enterprise versions available and things like that. But if you go to download, you'll see here the download center, and community server is the open source version that we're looking for. Now, they've got different tabs here for OS 10, Windows, Linux, or whatever. And you can download this and install it manually, but really the recommended way is to install it by Homebrew. And if you've never heard of Homebrew, it's basically a package manager for OS 10. It's called the missing package manager for OS 10, I believe. And it's very useful, or at least I use it a lot. And they've got instructions here for installing with Homebrew. So let's go ahead and click on that and see what that's got to say. So here's where this starts. But first up, we need to install Homebrew. So I've got the home page for Homebrew here, and the web address is just brew.sh. And the way we install it is we'll just copy this line right here, and then we'll pull up our terminal window, and we will just paste that in there and hit return. And it's telling you what it's going to install, and you hit return to continue. And then it will download and install Homebrew for you. Pretty simple, straightforward process. I've already got it installed, but it goes ahead and reinstalls it while you're at it. Now then, if we go back and look at our MongoDB help file here, it says the first thing we need to do is do a brew update. And that's just a way to update the packages that are in Homebrew. So we'll do that, and you see mine are already up to date. The only thing we've got to do after that is just type brew install mongodb and hit return. Now, I've already got it installed. It's just going to install another one over the top of that, which will be fine. We'll be back in just a second when this is done. Okay, and so now it's installed. And you see here, you can have launchd start it. We're not going to do that. We'll just run it when we need to use it. Launchd is just a way to have it start up when you start your Mac. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up another terminal window here. And again, I don't expect you to know all of this just by watching me here. This is just installing it and a quick example of what you can do with it. But to run it, we just need to type mongod, and that just stands for Mongo daemon, and that just runs as a server process. So we'll just type that and hit return, and it fires mongod up, and it's listening now on port 27017. So if I switch back to my other terminal, I can just type Mongo, and that's the client. So from here, I can just type help, and it gives me a list of optional command or commands that I can run. So I'll do show dbs, which is show dbs, and hit return. And these are the databases that I have on my system. These are from some other projects and things. But I can now type use, and let's just take a look at nexus-dev and hit return. And now we're using that database. So now if I type show collections, there's one collection in that database and it's called meter locations. So in order to look at the data that's in there, I can type db.meterlocations.find and just a pair of parentheses and hit return. And you see here it pulled up all this information. These are all documents that are stored in MongoDB. Now it's not real handy to look at this in the terminal, at least the way this is laid out. So I've got one even better, and that is a program called RoboMongo. Now you don't have to buy this, or you don't have to get this. If you don't want it, it's totally up to you. But it's basically a GUI management tool for MongoDB. And you can see here, you can download it or you can buy it. If you use it and you've got the money, go ahead and chip them a couple of bucks. It is cross-platform. It works on Windows, Linux, and Mac. But anyway, you can go ahead and download that and install it. And then I've got it right here. Let me pull this window over. Alright, so when it starts up here, I've got this MongoDB connections window. And you can create or whatever here. In my connection, I just named it local dev, and the address is just localhost 27017. If you'll remember, that's the port that MongoDB is running on. So now I can just hit connect, and it shows me a list of my databases over here on the left. So the Nexus Dev was the one we were looking at. We can expand collections and double click on meter locations. And here's all the documents. And you can see what I was talking about, how it really looks like JavaScript object notation or JSON. And that's why it works so well with JavaScript. But each one of these records right here is considered a document. And we'll get more in depth in that here in a little while. So if you've got your records and you've got these object IDs right here put in by Mongo by default, it gives each one a unique ID. And as part of this this object ID, there is a timestamp in there. So you can sort by date and stuff like that. The timestamp by when it was added. So if I wanted to find a particular one, I could just copy this line right here and paste that in between these curly braces here. And then hit this play arrow up here. And now that just takes me to this one document. When you leave that empty, it kind of like finds all documents. And then you can query other ways too. Say if you want to find everything in substation 10 right here, I can paste that in there and hit the play arrow. Now these are all of the meter locations that are in substation 10. Don't expect you to know what that means, but that's just one way to query. And we'll get into a lot more querying and sorting and things like that later on. Anyway, we've got MongoDB installed now, so let's go ahead and move on.